No, I think back a long way here, or maybe not so long, depending on how old you are. And I want you to think back to the first character that you can remember in a book or a story that you just didn't trust. Maybe you couldn't quite put your finger on why, but you didn't trust that character, and that made you feel a little odd. You hadn't run into somebody like that before. Can you remember which character that was? I remember it quite clearly, actually, because it made a big impression on me. For me, it was Dr. Seuss's The Cat in the Hat. How many of you know The Cat in the Hat? I would say, how much work am I going to have to do here? All right. The Cat in the Hat, tall, skinny cat, wears a top hat. Cat in the Hat, that's why. But this is not trustworthy character. It's kind of a shady character in the stories, because he has some pretty peculiar ideas on what is fun. And it reminded me of some friends that I had who could cause trouble, but when the parents showed up and there was disaster related to the trouble, somehow that individual never got blamed and always managed to be absent. This reminded me a little too much of this character. It's a character that you really wish would just behave, would clean up their act, and behave right. Now God tells the people of Israel, and He tells us that that's exactly what we ought to do as well. And lets us know how it can be done. And it won't involve, like the Cat in the Hat had, a clever little vehicle with arms coming out of it that could pick things up real fast, or a bunch of miniature cats, down to one so tiny you couldn't see him, that could help clean up a mess. We'll get to the details of that later, don't worry about it. But the Cat in the Hat seems nice enough when you first meet the character. He's polite, he introduces himself, he smiles. But there's unsettling signs from the very beginning that things might not be quite right. For instance, the cat just kind of barges into these kids' house uninvited when there's no parent around. That didn't seem right in the 1960s, and it seems downright creepy today. But he declares to the children who are bored in the first story because it's raining and they don't have anything to do. Mom has gone out. She'll be back later in the day. And he declares, oh, I want to have fun, and let me show you some ways to have fun that you've never seen before. I'll teach you a few things. But that cat, he just won't listen. To all the doubts and even fears that get raised by what he does. Whether it's from a kid or from a fish in a goldfish bowl. They asked him about the wisdom of what he's doing. He's bouncing up and down on a ball, saying, look at me, look at me, look at me now. It's fun to have fun, but you have to know how. I'm holding a rake and a cake on the rake and a cup and a ball, and it goes on and on like that. Don't get me started. I had 2 kids. We read a lot of Dr. Seuss. I remember more than you'd think. And he's up there hopping around on that. He's got the fish in the glass bowl on top of the rake, actually. Or in the second book, he just zips right on past those industrious children. This time they're out shoveling snow. Not the big, deep drifts of snow, and Mom has gone to town again. She said, now get all the walks shoveled before I get back. And the kids are dutifully doing it. When he just zips on past them and goes right on into the house, and never mind me, I'm just going to go inside. And after the first episode, they know better than to let him do that. Leaving it up to their imagination what kind of mess he's creating for them after that first episode. So, all in the name of fun while you're out there working. And they rush inside and they find the Cat in the Hat in that story bathing in their tub, running all the hot water out, eating their cake, as he likes to eat cake in the tub. And they chase after him, and they shoo him out of the tub, and they drain the tub, and they find that he's done his usual thing. He's created a problem. And this time he's left a mess in the tub, a pink cat ring all around the tub. It's nasty. And he assures them he can clean this up quickly, easily. It's not a problem, not at all. And chaos follows. Every time he cheerfully drags those children into his trouble, and disasters are always in the wake of his fun. And think about the characters that you distrusted so much because you knew somebody like that. Maybe it was another kid, maybe it was a family member, maybe it's a friend. It was like the Cat in the Hat. You like them, but you don't trust them as far as you can throw your house. Because they seem to be allergic to good advice or to common sense. No doubt we've all been in situations where we're left with a mess because of something somebody has done, or maybe something we've done, if we're honest. And we need to try to cope with the consequences of what happened. And the Cat in the Hat comes back with that cat ring in the tub. The cat first cleans it out of the tub quite cheerfully with Mom's white dress, which is now pink. He says, "Oh, don't worry about that." And he smacks it against the wall, and the dress is white again, but the wall is pink. He says, "That's not a problem." He picks up Dad's new $10 shoes. This was written a long time ago. His new $10 shoes. Cleans them off the wall, against the wall. Now the shoes are covered with it. This thing onto the carpet. From there, and then he picks up the carpet, and that gets on the bed. And he says, "That's not the right kind of bed. Look at the mess I made." And finally, there's a fan, and the fan blows the pink goo out of the house and onto the snow outside, which completely covers all the drifts around, and they just can't allow that to happen either, you see. So it just is this escalating problem. One thing after another, never quite being right. And in the first story, the Cat in the Hat was able to clean up the mess that he made with that amazing vehicle that comes rolling in the back door. His Mom's about to come in the front door, high tension moment there. And it's got all these arms that come out of it with little hands on it that puts everything back. So Mom never knew it. And in fact, the end of that story is, should we tell her what happened while she was out? What would you do? Would you tell her? Would you? Well, in the second story, it's not quite there. He can't do it alone. The Cat in the Hat realizes he has this moment where he realizes he can't get this thing done on his own. He's going to have some help. Have you ever run into a situation, though, like that, where, you're cleaning up something, trying to clean a mess up, and it just escalates? Like with that pink stain, it just moves from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next one down the line. It doesn't ever seem to be exactly fixed. Well, God's creation was a lot like that when it started out, and God looks at it and he says, "Oh, this is good. It's orderly, it's beautiful, it's great." Then we came along and started having fun. And we made a bunch of messes. We got trash scattered all over the place. Now, in fact, they sent a deep sea probe down to the deepest trench in the ocean, and they found plastic down there, where we've never been, except with that deep sea probe, but our garbage got there. And we've polluted the land, the air, the sea. It continues. We continue to do that. We've got lead in the water in some places, which makes the pink snow look really tame. And our messes extend beyond the world around us, what we do to our environment, and it gets into us and what we do to ourselves and the abuses we cause to ourselves and others, and how that can run down in generations through a family like a curse. And then there's homeless people that don't get cared for, particularly if they've got psychological problems and they get left out in the street. There's powerful people who won't listen to the people they're supposed to be governing, who ignore all sorts of warning signs, and this can lead to violence that will extend down generation to generation. Dr. Seuss originally wrote The Cat in the Hat, I found out, for two purposes. I knew this about some of his stories, but not this one, or these two. One, he needed to prove the idea that was going around back in the 50s that kids just won't read. And he said, no, they won't read because what they've got to read is really, really boring. How many of you read the ever-exciting Sally, Dick, and Jane books before Dr. Seuss? I really don't care what happens to Spot or to Puff. Because what happened at least 3 times, that's not real exciting reading. Run, Spot, run. Chase, Puff, that would be at least something. They never did. He says, so I can tell you, the kids will read if you give them something worth reading, and so out comes the Cat in the Hat. And other stories like that. He said, but I also want to make a point to the adults there, and I want to let them know that colonialism is a really bad idea. Going into somebody else's house, somebody else's land, and setting yourself up as a leader, as a boss that they don't want and didn't ask for, and then making a big mess that they don't want, that's not a good thing. And the cat is the character that portrays that. That was new to me. I didn't know it. The prophet Isaiah is trying to tell the people of Israel pretty much the same thing. He says, you've made a big mess, or a bunch of them actually, by not following God's ways. And your misdeeds have left stains on you. And he calls it blood on your hands. It's like that pink cat ring that gets on everything. Well, your sins have gotten on everything too. You made a mess. He said, and none of your fancy worship, as pious as it looks, as complex as it may be, is going to be something that God approves of until you change the way you do things, till you clean up your act, till you get that stain off of your hands. He says, you need to change. And if the worship doesn't lead to you loving yourselves and loving others and loving God, then you're doing it wrong. And they were doing it wrong. Just like the Cat in the Hat's idea of fun was wrong. Fortunately, our messes and the cat's, even catastrophic ones, can be fixed with God's help. There's nothing that God cannot accomplish. So, Isaiah told the Israelites, while the world is falling apart from without and from within, all around you, you can hope for a cleansing. You can start over. Even when the stain is as severe from sin as it is this time, when you work with God. While we tend to think of religion as an individual thing today, my faith, your faith, the Bible writers didn't think that way at all. They felt it was a group effort. This was something you did together. And so it was going to take a group effort to clean up the Israelites' act. One person couldn't manage it. They all had to be in it together. Everyone had to start over with God, following God's ways of love once again. Or they could all reject it. It was up to them altogether. But Isaiah says if you do that, you'll lead to your own downfall. It will be your destruction. The consequences are going to be incredibly negative. But it's your choice. What, Israel, do you choose to do? So Isaiah tells them, you need to be better. You need to get better. And to do that, you need to cease doing evil, for one. Now, there's about 6 points here. Okay. You need to learn to do good. So you've been at this bad so long, you need to actually relearn how to do good. You need to, and what do you do for that? Well, you seek justice. You rescue the oppressed. You defend the orphan. You plead for the widow. Not only does Isaiah say this, but the Torah said it before him, and Jesus would say it after him, so it's a theme all throughout the Bible to do these things. Speaking for orphans and widows meant standing up for those who were defenseless, those who are without a voice or without power in your society. Speak for them. And it requires doing something, not just saying on Sunday morning or online in forums or in Facebook or Twitter or all the rest that you want something. You need to do it. Don't speak with disdain of others. Don't gossip behind people's backs. Don't snarl about your teachers in your school. Don't bring loads of resentment and anger and greed and desire for revenge to Sunday worship. You can't worship God when you got a mess on your hands. You do what's right. You square yourself with others. You make sure your heart and your hands are clean, and then you worship, and then God will pay attention. Isaiah says. Make yourselves clean like the new fallen snow, without pink cat ring stains. And the only new fallen snow they saw, mostly in Israel, was up on distant mountains where it looked pure all the time. Beautiful white sparkling snow, way off somewhere else. And so that's what they thought of as snow. Still, it's a tall order. It is now just as it was then. And the Cat in the Hat comes back. The cat has that great realization that he's not going to be able to clean this up by himself. That he's going to need help, and so he takes off that hat on top of his head, that ridiculously tall hat. And under it is a slightly smaller cat, Cat A, who takes off his hat, and Cat B is under there, smaller still, and they go all the way down to Z. And Z is so tiny you can't see him. He's holding out the end of his finger, and there's Z supposedly on it. And he says, now Z takes off his hat, he's got something special. He's got a mighty power. It's tiny, but it's mighty. And he calls it boom. And sure enough, he takes off his hat, and boom, all that snow is made clean. All that mess is taken away. And it's innocent of all sin. Just like we want to be innocent of sin. And for Isaiah, he says that God says to you, come now, let us argue it out, says the Lord. Though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be like snow, if you're obedient and willing. It sounds shocking in an age where we assume that if someone argues with you, they're your enemy. But it's not true. We can disagree and still have unity. As we love each other, as we discussed last Sunday. For us today, God gave us Jesus, and Jesus gives us teachings, many ways to be obedient. Now, do you wish you had boom in your life? Would you like to be able to take off your hat and the mess goes away? Be nice. Well, we do have boom, and that's Jesus. Our mighty force who saves us, brings us good news, who shares God's love with us and tells us to share that love with each other and with the world, to be obedient and willing, as God said through Isaiah long ago. There's no mess that's too mighty for God if we trust and obey. God will erase sins so that we can live today free, starting over. Worship is always valuable when it leads down this path, when it calls us to argue with God, coming to a new understanding of how to live well with each other, all together in a community, following Jesus' way. Today, funds that we collected for the One Great Hour of Sharing over the past few years are being dedicated to help the Midwest. Right now, American Baptist Home Mission Societies is helping those who are suffering and powerless in the Midwest because of the heavy rains and tornadoes. $10,000 to ABC churches in the central region have been sent. $20,000 to Nebraska, on top of $10,000 they received in March, because 2/3 of that state is flooded. They're getting ready to release more funds to ABC Great Rivers Region Area 5 after the tornadoes from Eldon to Jefferson City, Missouri. And that's Missouri's capital, Jefferson City. So, we can pray for the relief of our Midwestern brothers and sisters, and we can do something. We can donate to One Great Hour of Sharing and continue to provide flood and tornado relief and disaster relief to those who struggle. It's one way that we can do something to help clean up messes, and in doing so, clean ourselves. Young, adult, elderly, there's always something we can do to follow God's way, to seek Jesus' assistance and live cleaner lives. It's amazing what we can learn from a book, whether it's the book of a prophet like Isaiah or the Cat in the Hat. Let's pause for a moment of silence. Amen.